All right, shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shai, Kol Haloim La, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwat that's listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing that the lesson is edifying. It's the brother Shawab Amwan back at you with another lesson. And going into the title, all right, Super El Nino being stirred up for the winter. All right, and this is a video I came across. All right, and Lord willing, I make it straight to the point, short. All right, a video I came across on Instagram. All right, and I was basically talking about how this super El Nino storm is being stirred up. All right, and it's funny because what a coincidence, right? We're in summer, right? Next month already is going to be the last month of summer, and then you're going to start to have the weather, go down a little bit. You're going to have the weather pretty much go to turn into that winter weather. Okay, at the end of the day, all right, well, it's going to be fall first, and then you're going to have that winter weather. So basically, right, give me 1 second because my radio's going to turn on. All right. So they're speaking about it now. All right. We're not even into the winter yet. Okay. But there's no coincidence that is being spoken of right now. And there's a reason for that. All right. Because they're trying to give you the heads up. All right. For when that time comes, they can already make it look like they've been speaking about it for a while. And that it's been, increasing this whole entire time due to global warming. Okay. And when we hear that word global warming, all right, there's a lot that comes behind that vibration. All right. Because I did a video on that while back. How whenever they use global warming, it's pretty much used to use the definition of depopulation. All right, because they said because of global warming, we have to get rid of people, which is wild as hell because I don't know what global warming has to do with people. All right, but apparently too much oxygen is being used in the earth, so we have to get rid of humans in order for us to, calm that global warming down. Okay, but let me grab this video real quick. All right, this is. 1 second. Before I grab it, let me hold on real quick. I know it's one of these videos that are blocked off. Can't really see it. Hold on real quick. Which one is one of these? There you go. So this is.
As an environmental scientist, I wish so badly that I could tell you that the super El Nino that's coming is nothing to worry about. You don't need to really prepare. You don't really need to understand it. But I'm a big believer that when you understand something more, you know how to better prepare for it. So we're going to talk about it, right? The last time we saw a super El Nino to the magnitude that we were expecting that this one might get to was in 1877, and over 50 million people died. Now, that's not to say that 50 million people are going to die this time, but it is to say that we've already seen this happen, so we need to learn from that.
Now, here it is over here. Here's a comparison. 1877 to 2026. Look at the difference in the temperature of the ocean, the Pacific Ocean specifically. This thing looks like the sun, y'all. It literally looks like the sun. And if you guys are unaware,
and real quick, it's basically NASA, the one that's coming out with this accusation, right? And when you understand NASA goes into Nasa in Hebrew, which means to deceive. All right, so a lot of what comes out of NASA is just straight lies anyway. All right, but And there goes the chime on that, right? But what's going to happen is that these devils are going to orchestrate it. You see, they have something planned out, and this is why they're speaking about it now. You see, we're not even close to winter, but they're talking about it now because it's going to be on the agenda for whatever they do, right? We know that they're able to manipulate weather. We know that they have harp stations, right? So they're going to bring all those things into use to create this super El Nino, to create this super storm. You see, and it's crazy because look, we're in the midst of World War III, right? You have the draft is coming up in December, right? You have right now, what is it that they just called is a global emergency due to the food source, right? Scarce water, scarce food. All right, this is what Mr. DJ Trump is telling you, right? We are on the verge of the dollar collapsing. Okay. So, put all these things together, man. Just put it all together. It's another thing for you to be worrying about in the midst of all this extra shit that's already happening. You see? So that's how you know as we get closer towards the end of this year, it's just going to be crazy as hell. And Lord willing that, it does get crazy because that this is all part of the end. All right. These are all different types of great miseries that are being brought upon our people, man. Okay. And the Lord has his way with the storm, as the scriptures say. You see, so, like I said, all these things happen simultaneously is a very big sign through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah to let you know that we're at the end. Okay. Again, they're speaking about this shit right now, and we're in the midst of July. We're in the middle of July. We still got a whole month and a half of summer, possibly a little bit more because summer came in late. So, it might leave late. It might have like a little, what you call an Indian summer. So in September, it might be a little hot. All right. And then you got October. Okay. They're talking about this coming around. I think it's supposed to be coming around October, November, and things like that. All right. And again, MOTB is about to be made mandatory. You got the draft that's about to be made mandatory. Jacob's trouble, scarce food, scarce water. And now this big ass storm comes when we already know they're about to knock off power out here. They're about to hit you with cyber attacks. You see, just another thing to add to the list. And this is something I was saying before, man. They have different angles to lock down this place right now. All right. Now, like I said, right now, they're talking about a lockdown due to water scarcity, man. Okay. And it's going to continue to get crazier and crazier, worse and worse. All right. So let's finish with the shoe, what they were saying.
Also called a national emergency on a fertilizer. The thing that we need in order to make food and vegetables and herbs. So this is the very reason the United States Food Reserve got established, because you guys see what's happening with the food in the supermarket right now. Have you guys seen the shelves? Even the fruits and vegetables, they're not filling up anymore. They're having trouble with that. The billionaires have been buying up all the farmland, all the water, and now the United States Food Reserve is established on the blockchain. How? And this is exactly how I do my research. I myself position myself early. This is not financial advice, but if you guys want to check this out, man, get yourself a Phantom wallet, and the information for this will be put in the comments below, man. We're in a digital age. Let's continue to get this shit, y'all. Peace out.
All right. So I looked it up just to clarify, to see if it was true that they were bringing that up. All right, that they were speaking about it, because you can't just believe everything you hear off of, Instagram, right? 1 second. So I looked it up, and it says, I asked, is there a super El Nino happening right now? Right? It says, yes, federal forecasters have confirmed that a rare super El Nino is brewing and is highly likely to peak this coming winter. You see? And what they've been speaking about for quite some time now, man, for a couple years now, that a dark winter will arrive. You see? So that can also be added toward that list. All right. And it says, according to the Climate Prediction Center, there is an 81% chance the weather system becomes very strong by fall. You see? By fall. And fall is right. Listen, man, Days are flying out here, man. We're already about to be in the fall, man. We're a month and a half away from the fall. All right, and that's gonna come real quick. By the time you know it, the end of the year is here. All right, so it says making it one of the most intense events observed since, I believe they were speaking since the that date that they gave 18 something. All right, because I screenshotted this, right? Oh, it says making it one of the most intense events observed since records began in 1950. What to expect? Historic warmth. It threatens to spike global temperatures to unprecedented levels. Regional impacts. The southern tier of the United States of the East Coast are expected to see above average active precipitation. California and Southwest are bracing for heavy storms, flooding, and dangerous surf, while the northern U.S. typically experiences warmer and drier weather. You see? So while all this is happening in the midst of all these different things that they got your mind to, right? This is also conjuring itself up. This is also being accumulated, right? It says duration. There is a 97% chance this El Nino pattern will persist well into 2027. Okay. Let me grab these other ones I had. Hold on. All right. It says El Nino is underway. All right. It says satellite observations of sea surface height indicated that the 2026 event continued to strengthen in early June. All right. And we're past June. Now we're in July. All right. June 18, 2026 is basically the date that it started to strengthen itself. All right. It says, one second, hold on. Yeah, it says higher than normal sea surfaces, red, are visible in the central and eastern Pacific on June 8th, 2026, a few days before El Nino was declared. Data for the map were acquired by the Sentinel-6 Michael Ferrelinch. It says satellite and processed by scientists at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It says El Nino, characterized by warmer than normal water temperatures in parts of equatorial Pacific, made its return in June 2026. Observations of sea surface height from the Sentinel-6 satellite that month indicated that the 2026 event was continuing to strengthen. The natural recurring phenomenon can have widespread effects, typically bringing wetter conditions to the U.S. Southwest and drought to the countries in the Western Pacific, such as Indonesia, Australia. All right, NOAA declared an El Nino on June 11th after sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific measured at least 0.5 degrees Celsius above average for several consecutive months. Meanwhile, NASA scientists have been observing a complementary sign of El Nino, areas of elevated sea surface height. When ocean water warms, it expands in volume and causes the sea surface to rise, making the water's height a reliable indicator of ocean temperatures. Warmer than normal temperatures, higher sea surface heights in parts of the Pacific Ocean are associated with El Nino. The map above depicts sea surface height and anomalies. It says across the central and eastern Pacific Ocean as observed on June 8th, 2026. Shades of red indicate sea levels that were higher than average. Normal sea levels conditions appear white and lower areas are blue. Okay. It says, hold on. It says earlier in spring 2026, the satellite started to detect precursor signs of El Nino as swells of warm water hundreds of miles wide, known as Kelvin waves, moved from the western Pacific to the eastern Pacific. That happens when trade winds in the western Pacific weaken and then temporarily reverse to blow from the west. Warm water piles up in the east, deepening the warm surface layer, lowering the thermocline, and suppressing the upwelling that usually keeps waters along the Pacific coast of the Americas cooler. This buildup of heat beneath the water surface is what sea surface height observations capture. It goes beyond surface temperature measurements to indicate how much heat is stored in the subsurface. That's important because a shallow, warm layer might not have been much impact on climate and weather, while a large reservoir of heat below the surface can matter more. You see? And that's all I screenshot. It was a little bit more left on there, but it was not really important. It was repeating itself. All right. But hey, man, you see that's a scary thing, man. Okay. And that's really Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai bringing them storms in, man. All right. Through Esau, because again, Esau is the one that's able to weather manipulate, right? He's able to weather manipulate. He's able to use harp to, you know, make a storm that comes out of because a lot of storms come from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, all right, from the dead middle of the sea, and then it comes towards the lands, right, because they move, and then because of harp stations, it pulls pretty much those storms, and then it just shoots them in a circle. It just keeps going in a circle. It keeps going in a circle, and every time it keeps coming back, it just gets worse and worse and worse. It becomes a superstorm more and more. You see, that's why you'll have like the Caribbean. They'll have a hurricane season, right? They'll have one hurricane that comes, right? Which that's what's coming. That's what comes in the fall. That hurricane season, right? Hurricanes will come, right? Tropical storms, and basically they'll come, they hit the Caribbean all the time, then they go up down the east coastline, then they go all the way up to Greenland, and then they go back around, and then they come back around again, and next thing you know, they're calling it another one when it's really the same damn storm, and it's just being used through harp to get more massive every time it comes back. You see, and then that's why every time it comes back, it's a new storm, it's a new name. And again, it's really the same damn storm, just being created into a superstorm through the technology that this devil has, man. You see? So, hey, it's about to get crazy as hell. It's about to get turned up in the midst of all this extra shit that's happening. Jacob's trouble's about to happen. MOTB's about to be made mandatory. World War III is about to pop off, where they're going to draft everybody out here in the United States. And look, you got all this that's coming at the same time. You got food scarcity, right? You got water being scarce, and then they're calling it an emergency, declaring an emergency upon the globe. You see, the Lord is visiting this place, man. Better get right before Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai completely destroys this place, man, and brings agony to this place. All right. So that's pretty much the point. All right. As a matter of fact, let me leave you with this precept. All right, because they're talking about the winter and the fall. This is Matthew 24 and 20. Matter of fact, let's say from 19, it says, and this was talking about in the time of 70 AD, right? But we're going to use that towards this time too, right? It says, and woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. You see, it's going to be tough for those women that have children, right? Nursing children, right? Because they ain't gonna have the necessities they need, man. It's gonna be a dark winter, a cold one, right? It says, but pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, meaning what? Your escape. You see, you don't want your escape to be in the middle of something like this happening, all right? Where you ain't really prepared for it. You ain't got no damn survival skills out there, man. You see, that's why you need Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Says, but pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Yeah, it's gonna be times. These last days, man, is gonna be times that we ain't never seen, because so much things are gonna be happening all at once simultaneously, man. People not gonna be able to. They're gonna be too overwhelmed with what's going on. They're not gonna be able to hold on. You know, these people not gonna be able to sit here and deal with all this shit at once. You see, these are the great miseries that's coming to those that lived in those days with great pride, man. You see, so you got to pray that you're escaping in the winter. All right, and if it is, man, have full faith that Yahweh Bashem Yahushua got you in those last days, man. All right, so that's pretty much the point. Like I said, it was gonna be short, nothing big. Just wanted to talk about it now because they talking about it now. All right, and I'm sure there's gonna be more videos coming out on it more and more as we get closer to the fall and closer. Definitely when we get towards the winter, you see, they're gonna be speaking about it more and more and telling you that they've been telling you about this shit since the summer. You see. So stay on point with it. All right. Shalom. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah Barakatah unto you. Lord willing that the lesson was edifying. All right. To you and the hopeful elect. And to Wada Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah for the men. All right. That you have given us to, you know, sharpen us up in these times. All right. Sharpen us up with this sword that we have, which is these scriptures, man. All right. So with that being said, Shalom. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah Barakatah.